Well, let me welcome you here. It is Friday morning, 10 o'clock Central here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. My name is John Terry. I'm with Vision Advisors, and I want to say thank you for jumping in to be with us as we're going to take a few minutes in this Vision Success Academy to talk about addressing other client needs. As we're dealing with individuals turning 65, and that's where the focus of this presentation is going to be, there's a number of issues that these individuals are going to be dealing with in retirement and opportunities to plug into and be a part of something other than just healthcare. Now, when people turn 65, their mind immediately goes to where? Medicare and Social Security. And those are the two main areas they think of. But as you're working with these individuals, we want to talk today about other opportunities that you can uncover and some tips on how to do that. So as you are working with these turning 65 individuals, you have an opportunity to serve not just their healthcare needs, but to serve their other financial needs. And I also want to talk about positioning, because if these individuals that you're having conversation with about Medicare or about Social Security, if they don't understand that there are other things that you can do for them in the areas of income planning, longevity planning, long-term care planning, estate planning, survivorship planning, wealth generational transfer planning, whatever it may be, if they don't know you do those things and you're not properly positioning yourself in the conversation with those clients to know that you are the go-to person to help also solve those problems, guess what? At the end of the day, you're invisible to them. They don't realize that you are a qualified source to help them in that area, and they're going to turn and look to another financial professional to help them. So those are a few of the things that we're going to talk about in today's training session. I hope you've got a pen and paper handy so you can take a few notes. And then at the end of this, I'm going to be sharing a resource I'm going to be sending out to you as an attendee for signing up for today's event. So let's jump right in and get started. And let's really talk about the market that you're in. As we're looking at the turning 65 market, you've likely heard and you've seen the statistic, 10,000 people are turning 65 every day. And this baby boomer generation, of which I'm a part and I'm on the tail end of, we're going to be turning 65 at the rate of around 10,000 people a day up through the year 2030, when the last of the boomers hits that magic number of 65. Now, if you think about opportunity in this market, how many people are we talking about in this boomer market? We're talking about over 29 million Americans right here in the United States turning 65 that are going to be dealing with some significant issues and financial decisions they're going to have to make that are going to impact the next third of their life that they're going to spend in retirement. Now, notice what I just said. They're going to spend up to a third of their life in retirement. Because of medical advances and medical technology, we're living longer today than any previous generation. When I turned 50 years old a few years ago, my son met me as I was coming down the stairs in the bedroom, and he grabs me and he gives me a big hug and he says, "Congratulations, Dad, you're half dead." I laughed and I smiled and I gave him a big hug back and I said, "Thank you, son." And he looked at me kind of funny. He said, "Really, Dad, you're half dead?" I said, "Well, if I'm only half dead at 50, that means I'm going to get to live to at least the age of 100. So I need you to go ahead and write down now what songs you want me to sing at your funeral and what nice things you want me to say about you when you're no longer here and I'm preaching your funeral message." And we got a big laugh out of that. But I mean, really, what we're looking at today, this boomer generation stands to be one of the longest lived generations in recent history. And that for you and I creates a lot of opportunity. Now, as we're looking at these turning 65 individuals, there's a significant area beyond Medicare that they need to be thinking about, but oftentimes they're coming to you if you sell Medicare as part of your practice, supplements or Advantage or both. They want to understand how Part A works. They want to understand how Part B works. They want to understand how Part D, the prescription drug card, works. And now Part C, the Medicare Advantage plan that blends all of these elements together. Individuals turning 65 need to know what their options are. And if you're doing turning 65 workshops and you're having an opportunity to meet with these individuals in groups to share this particular information with them, they find that valuable. And if you're not turning 65 markets, you're not doing that on a regular and consistent basis, you're missing an opportunity to put qualified prospects in a room with you that you can educate, you can inform, and you can be seen as a go-to authority expert in this area to let them know that you know more about Medicare and what's related to that than anybody else in the industry around them. So if you're not doing the Turning 65 workshops or some type of educational event around that, reach out to us here at Vision Advisors and let's have a conversation on some things we can do to help you have that conversation with your clients. You may want to talk with us about Peace of Mind University or Your Retirement Reality or some of the other initiatives that we have that can help you speak to this particular topic for your clients. But you've got to remember that your clients that you're dealing with are going to have other questions beyond just, do I buy a Med Sup? Do I buy Med Advantage? Is it Plan F or Plan G? Or do I go with the Med Advantage plan and get a zero premium? All of those questions come into play, and those are important questions to answer. But there's other questions that need to be answered as well. Like, do they stay on their employer plan or do they apply for Medicare? Do they want to continue to use their group health insurance as their supplement until they exit? Or does it make sense to move from their employer-sponsored health plan onto Medicare itself? Depending on how much of that premium the employer is paying, it may make sense for them to stay where they are until they decide to exit the workplace. This is part of that important planning and conversation that you need to be having with your customers that are turning 65. And of course, that obvious question, do I go the Med Sup route or do I go the Medicare Advantage route? Do I do a separate Part D plan if I go Medicare Supplement, or does it make sense to do an all-in-one plan that includes everything? Those are questions that you are likely having every single day if you're part of the Medicare market and you're selling in that space. And it is a much needed space with significant opportunity. But important to remember that as you're having a conversation with these turning 65 individuals, they have other financial needs. As we think about the retirement puzzle and the questions they have, your job as a financial professional is to help them put all of the pieces of their financial puzzle together so their financial reality and their reality of what their money's going to look like in retirement and how well they're protected and what they're going to have available to them, all of that is part of your role and your job as a financial advisor to have an opportunity to serve them in that area and give them clarity so that as they're putting the pieces together, they go together the right way so they work together to form the picture of retirement that they've envisioned for the last 30 to 40 years of their working reality. But if all you're doing is working in the Medicare space, you're only helping them with one piece of the puzzle. Now think about that. If you are a financial professional and all you're doing is Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, what are the other opportunities you're missing out on? The opportunity to have income conversations around moving assets, the opportunity to help them understand how to create guaranteed income, that paycheck that's got to be replaced when they are no longer receiving a paycheck from their employer, and making sure that no matter how long they live, that money's going to be there. Being able to have a conversation to them about what Medicare does and does not cover in the event they get sick or they get injured and that illness or that injury becomes chronic. And then from there, it becomes to the point they can't recover. And now instead of getting restorative care or restorative care, now all of a sudden it is custodial care just to help them maintain their standard of living. Now the long-term care conversation comes into play. And if they haven't done proper planning and they haven't put a plan in place, the state in which they live has a plan for their wealth distribution that may not be to their liking. So there's some important other conversations you could be having. And let's dive in and take a look at a few of those right now. Now, Social Security is a significant issue that individuals have got to make a significant choice on. And sadly today, a little over 80% of individuals, as soon as they turn 62, they're claiming Social Security benefits at the earliest age possible. They don't realize when they do that, and they're making that early claim that they're receiving significantly less in monthly benefits than they could have received if they waited until their full retirement age, which is typically around 66, 67 today, depending on the date of their birth, or if they delayed claiming until later, they could have substantially more. In fact, the difference between age 62, the earliest they can claim it, and receiving benefits at age 70 and claiming it then, that gap difference is a little over 70% in each monthly check that that individual could receive. Now, that's important because Social Security in many situations has to cover two lives. As we're dealing with a lot of individuals that are coming into retirement as a married couple, Social Security is going to be there for him and for her. And at the death of the first individual in that family member, typically it's the husband, the surviving spouse gets the greater of the two checks. And if you claimed benefits at the age of 62, you're leaving a surviving spouse with around 70% less in monthly benefit than they could have received if claiming was delayed to the age of 70. Now, you can also claim on time and have an opportunity to receive your full benefit, or you can delay claiming to age 70 and have an opportunity to receive delayed credits of 8% a year up to the age of 70. Now, we're going to be doing a consumer education event coming up later in May the 24th, where we're going to be going into a lot more detail about Social Security and helping clients understand Social Security and how it works for them and the importance of making this claiming decision, because Social Security for most Americans is going to make up 40 to 60% of their guaranteed paycheck that they're going to have available to them for the rest of their lives. So it's a decision they've got to make sure they get right. And we're going to be having that conversation, and it's open to the customers of any financial advisors that are contracted and doing business with Vision Advisors. So if that is of interest to you and you've not yet signed up to invite your clients to that event, reach out to me after this presentation is over, and I'll be happy to share with you the steps in the process and make sure you qualify to be able to have this resource available free of charge for us to help educate your customers on what they need to know to make this important claiming decision. And of course, as I already talked about, making sure in this Social Security claiming scenario that you are giving thought to how you maximize the benefits to a surviving spouse. Why is that important? Women in a marriage relationship tend to outlive their male counterparts by an average of 5 to 7 years. And sadly, the numbers we see today, about 80% of elderly women over the age of 75, their sole source of income is Social Security. And oftentimes that check is much, much smaller than it could be because of a failure to think into survivor planning in the claiming process. Now, in addition to the Social Security question, there's income planning questions that turning 65 individual has, because they have likely, if they work for an employer of any size at all, been participating in some type of group retirement plan, or if not, they've likely saved some assets on their own. So as they're getting ready to transition from the work world into the world of retirement, there's a big question that comes into play. Which income asset do I tap into first? Do I go directly to Social Security, or does it make sense to start claiming assets and taking income from my 401k or my IRA and allowing that Social Security check to continue to grow? Because Social Security may be taxable in part or in whole, depending on how much additional money that you're earning. So thinking into the Social Security claiming decision as it relates to other assets can make sure you're claiming in such a way that you can minimize the tax bite to Uncle Sam. Does it make sense to take some money from a 401k or maybe do a Roth conversion and delay receiving those dollars for a few years? So dollars that would have been received as taxable income can now be received as income tax-free money. Are there non-qualified things they could be looking at in terms of investment assets that they could utilize, such as cash value life insurance, to create tax-free income if they're not yet 265 and they still have time to do planning? There's important conversations that need to be had. Maybe there's a 401k from work that they need to roll over. The average 401k balance here in the United States for someone 55 to 64 is around $256,000. Rolling that over into an IRA in whole or in part that goes into an annuity can create that additional guaranteed income that they need to live on for the rest of their lives. Because your consumers that you're working with, your clients turning 65, need to understand there's only three sources of guaranteed income in retirement. Social Security, number one. Number two is going to be a pension, if they're fortunate enough to have one from an employer such as a government or a educational institution, or the only other source of guaranteed income is an annuity. So out of those options, looking at how they create as much guaranteed income as possible is an important conversation you need to make sure that you're having with your clients so that piece of the puzzle is clear and fits perfectly with the healthcare piece. There's also the long-term care conversation. 7 out of 10 individuals turning 65 are going to experience a long-term care event prior to death. Now, hear me again on that. 7 out of 10 individuals age 65 or older are going to experience a long-term care event, meaning they're going to require some form of assistance either at home or in a qualified medical facility for a minimum of 90 days. The average cost of a semi-private room for long-term care in the United States today is pushing $90,000 a year. We're seeing a significant uptick in the number of Alzheimer's and dementia cases because of earlier diagnosis and the fact we're living long enough for our bodies and our minds to begin to wear out before the rest of us does. Now, the conversations that come up is this: I don't want to be a burden on my family. If something happens to me, can we put a plan in place so my family isn't financially burdened, but also physically burdened with the care of having to take care of me? Because without a plan, and only around 15% of retirees have one, typically mom ends up taking care of dad, wears herself out in the process. And then after dad is taken care of at home and passes away, mom is so physically and mentally exhausted and worn out, she ends up in a facility for the rest of her lives. Proper planning can prevent that from happening. Now, if an individual that's turning 65 is thinking into this chronic care issue because they're dealing with aging parent issues of their own, and the reality that this could happen to me is now facing them, they may say, what are the steps I can take to be able to stay at home and get the quality of care that I need without leaving the comfort and privacy of this place I've grown up in and I'm now living in, and I don't want to leave? Early planning can make that possible. But if they wait until they actually need care, the options available to them are significantly limited. And then, of course, they need to understand how long-term care is paid for. They need to understand the very few instances where Medicare pays little, if anything, for those needs. They need to understand the qualifications if they're going to rely on Medicaid, and understanding they're going to have to spend all of their own dollars first and essentially become a pauper before they're going to be able to get Medicaid to pay for them. If they're going to pay for long-term care out of pocket, they need to understand the financial cost related to that. And they also need to understand that there are ways to shift that risk to insurance. And there's not just traditional care options available today. There are asset-based solutions that in the event they don't need care, they haven't purchased an insurance product that they never receive a benefit from. Those are unique options that you have an opportunity to share with those turning 65 clients. And then, of course, there's the survivorship questions, the wealth transfer questions. As we're getting ready to take income from a pension or from a retirement asset like a 401k or an IRA, one of the questions that comes up is, do I take a single life payout where I can get as much money today as possible, but when I die, my spouse gets nothing? Or does it make sense to take a little bit less so the income continues for not just my life, but also the life of my wife or my husband, whatever the case may be in that scenario? Depending on how they're drawing income from their assets What happens if one of the income sources, like a Social Security check, goes away when one spouse dies? How do we replace that income through life insurance or through other assets that have not yet been tapped? What are the things that we do to be able to provide income for a surviving spouse? Again, do we lean on life insurance or do we lean on other assets? Or does it make sense if we're doing a single life payout to take a portion of that single life payout and purchase a life insurance policy with that? So at the death of the first spouse in a marriage relationship, that death benefit then supplements that income back to the surviving spouse, giving them additional dollars that otherwise they wouldn't have access to. And as far as the transfer process, do they have a will? Do they have a trust? Do they have a plan in place to preserve wealth and to transfer wealth? Do you have an estate planning attorney on your team? One of the things we do here at Vision Advisors is we can partner you with an estate planning attorney so that you can literally create a family office partnership and relationship with you and an attorney to have those conversations with your clients, to have an opportunity to do an extensive deep dive fact finder to understand all of their assets and what they want them to do, to put together a will or a trust or a combination of the two, along with those important medical preparedness documents that allow them to express their wishes in the event they're injured or they're sick and they're unable to express their own. These are powerful planning tools that you have available to you through Vision Advisors that can help you serve your turning 65 customers at a much higher level than you may be serving them right now or realized that you could. Now, what I want you to understand is this. There are a significant number of other questions that your clients turning 65 are asking. And one of the biggest questions they're asking is, can you help me in these areas? Now, they may not be asking that out loud, but as they're listening to you having conversation with them about what it is that you do in serving their healthcare needs, if they don't hear these other topics mentioned, in their mind, they automatically check the box. Oh, he doesn't do that. Oh, she's not an expert in that area. And as a result of that, you lose credibility and you lose the ability to also serve that client at a much higher level than you may be serving them right now. So it's important to let them know that you do much more than just the healthcare arena. That while you may want to focus on this topic today, there are other topics that you want to focus on and have a conversation with them about so their picture of retirement is clear. And when all the pieces are put together, it looks exactly like what they envisioned it to look like. Or if not, they at least have a clear understanding of this is the best they can do with the assets they have available. Now, you may be coming back to me and saying, but John, I'm not an expert in that area. Well, an expert, if we look at it, an expert, break the word apart. An X is a has-been and a spurt is water under pressure. An expert is someone that claims to be an expert. Earl Nightingale said this: anybody can become an expert in any particular topic if he or she will commit 1 hour a day for 5 years to become an authority figure and a knowledge matter expert on a particular topic. Now, it's not a matter of the fact that you can't be an expert in those areas. It's a matter that you have not availed yourself to the training and had the opportunity to train yourself up to become a better version of you, to become an expert or at least more knowledgeable in these areas than maybe you are right now. Now, that's not casting blame on you, and maybe you've decided you want to focus and be niche focused in Medicare. If so, that's great. And if you want to stay there, but also serve your clients at the highest level that you can, then the very next thing to becoming the expert yourself, and oh, by the way, this is an area we can help train you in so that you can become an expert in these other areas that we've talked about. That's part of what we do at the Vision Success Academy and our coaching program that's available to our contracted producers that several of you on this call are taking advantage of. And we're having coaching calls at least twice a month to help you expand your knowledge, your expertise, to do a deep dive into your business and to identify what you need to do to grow and see greater success. That's part of what we do. But if you want to stay singularly focused on Medicare, let me share a solution and an idea with you. If you don't want to be the expert in anything other than Medicare, then you need to align yourself with an expert who is knowledgeable in those other areas. I've already mentioned the fact that we can align you with an estate planning attorney. We can literally put an estate planning attorney virtually in your office so that now in the area of expertise, you have an attorney as part of your team. So as you're having those turning 65 conversations, you don't have to be the expert in estate planning. You've got an attorney that has that expertise that can support you and your clients and make those important financial planning referrals back to you to serve your customer at a higher level. If you're not an expert in annuities or life insurance or long-term care, then partner and align yourself with someone who can help you in that area. We have helped advisors that work in specific niches partner with other advisors that we work with that may be in your area or are licensed to do business in your state that are willing to align themselves and work with you and be that authority figure and an expert, do revenue sharing on the applications in the business they write, but to allow you to function in the area of your expertise. And if your expertise is an area of expertise they don't have, there becomes that reciprocal sharing of relationships and clients to work together that can be extremely powerful. So if you haven't given thought to going the next step, if you just want to stay singularly focused in one area, this is another option to consider. Now, whether you want to learn new things, which I encourage you to do, or you want to align yourself with an expert, one of the most important things you can do as you're meeting with your clients is to use a fact finder. We are dealing today in a world, in the insurance world and in the investment world, the banking world, the entire financial services community, where the ability to have good information and to document your recommendations is becoming increasingly more important. Now, one of the things that we've done here at Vision is we've developed a very unique fact finder that allows you to gather information not only about what the client owns in terms of assets. We train you in how to use a fact finder to not just identify what the assets are, but what they want those assets to do for them. Maybe it's a CD they've got set aside that they want to leave for their grandkids to be able to go to college. That could be a single premium life opportunity you uncover. Maybe there's assets they've set aside that's income related. Maybe there are other assets they've set aside for inflation protection or an emergency fund or money that they're just accumulating for some other need in the future. Understanding and identifying what they own, what they want it to do, and whether or not that asset is performing the way they wanted it to perform is mission critical information for you to be able to help make sure that you're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together in such a way that it works for the customer. If you're working with an estate planning attorney, they're going to need a fact finder to understand what they own and what they want protected in the event they were to die or they were to get sick or injured and someone needs to step in and take care of the assets that they own. All that's part of the process. But identifying what they have now allows you to have those conversations about whether or not what they're doing is working, or perhaps there's another way they can get to the finish line better, faster, or have a greater return than they're currently experiencing in the assets that they hold. And if you've made those all important connections with those experts, you've got an opportunity to now align those individuals with yourself, building a family office type of business that maybe you're a P&C expert and you bring healthcare experts in. Maybe you're a Medicare expert and you bring in a life or a long-term care or an annuity expert. You align yourself with an estate planning attorney. Now look at what you're bringing to the table. So as you are introducing yourself to your customers, now you can say, in addition to the conversation we're having today, here are other areas that I can serve you and your spouse and other members of your family, because we want to be here to serve you at the highest level that we can. That's a very powerful conversation that 99% of the other individuals that are working the T65 market are not having. The vast majority of turning 65 producers working in the Medicare space are solely focused on Medicare to the exclusion of everything else. And while putting on the blinders can be good, there's significant opportunity to help your clients see success in other financial opportunities and problems they want solved, and you get a chance to share in the revenue of making that happen. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean by that. We talked earlier about the average 401k balance of a 55 to 64-year-old being $236,000 thereabouts on average in the United States. Let's assume, for conversation purposes, they want to have part of that money principal protected and safe because they've tired of the ups and downs of the market, and they just saw the $1,000 drop or 1,000-point drop in the market we saw yesterday, and they're concerned that they don't want to retire and have their 401k be a 201k when all of a sudden they need their money. So let's assume they want to roll $100,000 out of that 401k into an IRA that's funded by a fixed indexed annuity. Now, the average commission nationwide on a fixed indexed annuity for a 65-year-old is around 6%. So a $100,000 401k rollover to an IRA funded by a fixed indexed annuity at 6% is $6,000. Now, let's assume that you're bringing in an expert because you don't want to learn how to write this business yourself, and you've got someone that is doing this for you and working with your clients, and y'all are doing a 70-30 split. They're getting 70% for doing the work. You're getting 30% for bringing the customer and having that relationship. Even if you only got 30% of that $6,000, that's still $1,800. That's not too bad for making a referral. And if you do that enough times, that can be pretty substantial. But if you look at that number on the top and you say, maybe I do need to learn a little bit more about this income planning thing. Maybe I do need to understand and realize there's an opportunity to double, triple, or quadruple the amount of money I'm making with the existing clients I have by serving other needs they have. It could be a conversation that we need to have. Now, you could make more money without changing what you're doing by becoming a Medicare and More producer. That's part of a training that we offer, and we're doing that now with other MedSup producers and some MedSup agencies that we work with. Learning how to properly position yourself in conversation with the client. Learning an interview process that helps uncover and expose what you need to know to identify what other financial needs that individual client may have. Being able to introduce those important experts like an estate planning attorney when it's needed, and doing it in a way that's going to be compliant with the CMS rules that you find yourself having to follow as a Medicare producer. That's part of what we do here at Vision Advisors every single day. And one of the exciting things I love that's come out of this crazy pandemic that we've dealt with for the last 2 or 3 years is the opportunity to do virtual client meetings. Many of the advisors that we work with that made the shift early in COVID all of a sudden realized I'm licensed in 5 states. I can't drive to those 5 states because of COVID, but there's this really cool thing called Zoom that you and I are on right now. And as a result of that, I can literally meet with my clients face to face in a digital room, and we can have a conversation. There's significant tools that are out there today that you can use to not only meet with your customer, but many of the financial carriers that we work with have electronic applications. So you can literally meet with a customer in another state, provided you're properly licensed there to do so, make the presentation, make the sale, take the electronic application over the Zoom call or the old school telephone and transmit that to them. They electronically sign that application and it's off to the carrier with no paper ever having to be mailed back and forth. Now, of course, you can still do the old paper style, and we have producers that will do these Zoom or these phone calls. They'll do the old school paper app. They'll mail it. They'll create an envelope to mail it back, and they do it that way. Either one works, but it's an opportunity to expand what you're doing to other areas of the country where you may be licensed that prior to COVID, you hadn't thought about doing. You know, it's amazing that I saw an article just this morning that it said the fear of technology is gone. One of the fastest growing segments of our economy that we saw in the pandemic, embracing technology and using it faster than any other demographic, were those 55 and older. For many of them that were stuck at home, it was the only way they could stay connected with their family members. They've embraced technology. They're all streaming Netflix. They've all got an Apple Fire Stick, or they've got Hulu or some other resource. They've learned to use Zoom. They're on Facebook. They're on LinkedIn. They're on Instagram. They're on TikTok. They are in a virtual world. And when I have a producer say, my client doesn't use technology, that may be true in random cases, but I'm here to tell you 95% of the time, it is a bias of the producer that says, I don't want to learn to use technology to serve my client because I'm stubborn and I don't want to change. Hey, we're all that way. I mean, let's admit it. Nobody wants to change, but when we embrace change, we create opportunity to serve our clients at a better level, connect with them in new and different ways, to stay in relationship with them, build relationship, but also to reach beyond the physical boundaries of where we are to work with customers in other states that we hadn't considered working with, that we can connect with and market to via Facebook, via LinkedIn, via Instagram, via all the social media tools that are out there. And we can expand our presence without ever having to leave Florida or Texas or Arkansas or Oklahoma or wherever it is that you call home. Now, we do offer training around that, but one of the important areas that I've seen that's been very, very powerful is using virtual client meetings to do training to continually be up-leveling the education of your client. Financial illiteracy is rampant across America. That's why, according to a study by Real Life Management, 85% of retirees are going to end up broke in retirement because they don't know how money works and how to make money work for them. That's where you have an opportunity to step in and solve that. And as you're providing ongoing education, and by the way, we have a number of training resources you can use, you're exposing your clients to thoughts and ideas and money problems they maybe didn't realize that they have. And out of those training and education opportunities, you now have the opportunity to turn your existing clients into your unpaid sales force, because as you're sharing education and you share with your clients, here's what I'm going to be teaching on. I'm not going to be selling anything during this training. I just want to give you some education and information and get you thinking about things maybe you haven't thought of. And you extend the invitation for them to invite a neighbor, a friend, a family member, or a coworker. They just become your referral partner. And as long as you're delivering good content, they will do that all day long. So really the big thing for you is, do you want to implement strategies like this in your practice? Again, another area we can help train you on, but the goal of using virtual meetings is this: to meet your clients where they are. A study I recently saw that even in a post-COVID world, more than half of people 55 and older still prefer to meet with their financial advisor through an electronic portal like we're meeting today, for two reasons. Number one, it allowed them to meet on their schedule so they could control and manage their time. It also did not require them to have to travel to see you, or you to have to travel to see them and end up in those horrible traffic delays, or you're running late from an appointment and getting late to them, or at the last minute something comes up and they can't get to you on time, this allows them to redeem their time to be comfortable in their own home environment or their own work environment, wherever they're meeting with you, and still being able to have those private, personal, intimate one-on-one conversations. Now, I want to move to a couple of things real quick as we get ready to wrap up, but I've got a little bit of training I want to share with you, but I did want to touch on one important thing. Every one of you are likely marketing your business and you're spending money to market. So let me ask you this question. Why would you spend your money to market when you can spend ours? One of the things we bring to the table here at Vision Advisors is the opportunity for you to utilize a very unique marketing reimbursement tool that we have called Money to Market. It's an opportunity that as you write qualifying business with Vision Advisors, we set aside in a special account for you dollars that you can use to spend specifically for marketing. Now, it's not money we're going to put in your pocket, because here's what I've learned over 30 years in the business. A financial advisor that is unwilling to invest in themselves is not going to grow their business. I'm amazed at the number of calls I get every week from producers that have been in the business 10, 15, 20, some 30 years. And when they call up, the first thing they ask for is, can you give me leads? And I stop and I think, you've been in the business for 30 years, 10 years, 20 years, even 5 years, and you're still having to rely on leads. Why? If you're in the financial services business and you're serving your clients well, you're exceeding expectations, and you're building relationship with your client is going to want to serve you. It's the law of reciprocity in play, and they will become your unpaid sales force and create those referral opportunities. As you're positioning yourself, if you're not positioning yourself with your customers to set up those referral opportunities, you're missing it. So if you've been in this business 10, 15, 20 years, and you're still having to rely on leads to get in front of somebody new, you really need to have a man in the mirror, woman in a mirror moment with yourself and ask yourself, what have I not done in my business practices that have caused me to get to this point? And if you're one of those that's just focused on getting the next new customer, you're missing a couple of things. It costs 8 times more money to get a new customer than it does to get an additional business out of an existing customer. And it costs even less to serve that customer and build relationship with them to the point that they make introductions on your behalf and they're feeding your sales funnel for you. Again, it's an area of expertise that we have, that we teach on, and I want to make sure that you understand that. But I wanted to point out the fact that the more business you do with Vision Advisors, the more money you have available. I can think of one producer that we work with that she started doing seminars at the first of the year. She invested in her first event, was successful, got people in the room, people signed up. She had the follow-up. She sold business. Her money to market reimbursement reimbursed her entire cost to do that workshop. So she got to use those very same dollars a second time and replicate the process. And a third time, using the same dollars over and over again. That's the power of money to market. So if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to have a conversation with you about how we can help you. Now, as we wrap up, I want to share with you just a couple of things we're going to do at the end of this. I'm going to be following up to every one of you that registered and attended this event with a follow-up email communique. Be watching for that coming from me later today. In that, I'm going to share some insights into some of the questions you should be asking your turning 65 customer to have an opportunity to identify the privilege and the honor to speak about those other pieces of the puzzle that you saw in the illustration I shared with you today. I'm also going to extend an opportunity to you if you're contracted with Vision Advisors and we've not yet had a conversation about what you're doing in your business and where you want to take your business to the next level. I'm going to extend an invitation for you to schedule a strategy call with me, and let's talk about where you want to go and what it's going to take to get there. I'd love an opportunity to share some ideas with you of some things you can do in your business to be able to serve your existing clients in a better way than you're serving them now, to be able to bring additional tools and resources, educational, bringing the attorney to the team, other things we have available, and more importantly, to identify where you want your business to go from where it is right now to where you want to be a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. If you're thinking about a transition plan out, what's the transition plan to bring somebody in to serve your customers? Let's have a conversation about that. And if it makes sense to continue the conversation, I'd love to talk with you about our vision coaching program, where we meet a couple of times a month to talk about what's going on in your business, put together specific strategies and homework steps. Accountability is that, so that we can make sure you're doing what needs to be done and we're accountable to you on the things that we're going to do to help you grow. That's the conversation that I'd love to have with you. And I'd also love in that conversation to share some of the additional tools and resources that we have to see if that is a fit for what you're doing in your business, or maybe an area in which you want to expand. And from that, to serve your existing customers at a higher level, to reach new and better customers, and more importantly, how to position your marketing in such a way that you are uniquely attracting the specific type of customer or customers that you prefer to work with, that want and need and can pay for the financial products and services that you offer. If we can get you in front of a more qualified prospect and do that on a more consistent basis and attract the type of customer you want to work with, you win, the customer wins, we win, and nobody's wasting time on the clients and the customers that are just tire kickers and are never going to do business with you. Now you can spend more of your time working with the folks that uniquely want to work with you, that you can uniquely help. That's the value of what we bring here at Vision Advisors, and I hope you'll take advantage of that. So I want to say thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time. I trust you found this of value. Watch for that email coming to your inbox later today. It's going to be coming from John at Vision Advisors, Inc., and it's going to say Beyond Medicare, Next Steps in the subject line. Feel free to reach out to me at 1-800-505-8489. I'm at extension 102, or you can go to visionadvisorsinc.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and you can schedule a strategy call with me or any of the consultants on our team, because our calendar links are there for your use to schedule time to work with us. I appreciate you joining me. I hope you have a great and fantastic weekend. It's Mother's Day weekend. So for all the moms on the call, thank you for being a mom. Thank you for loving your children and raising your children and turning them into the incredible individuals that they are. And for all of you who still have a mom living, make sure you take some time this weekend to let her know how much you value her and how much she has meant to you. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.